Hello everybody and welcome to the video in which I'm going to be explaining all the Mana and Artifice spells, this time for tier number 4 out of 5. So this is going to be the second to last video on all the Mana and Artifice spells, which is kind of crazy. So let's get right into it. So we have two new cantrips. So those two new cantrips are that we have a special faction grimoire. I'm going to set this to be easier to draw because, you know, I don't want to have to draw like super fancy shapes. Okay, so we have our faction grimoire, which, as you can see, because I am a member of the council, I have this new grimoire, and as you can see, I have one of the old grimoires up because it's actually like the same grimoire still. They just made it visually different. So these grimoires aren't really different at all. Yeah, and they also have new freeform spells. So you can just check my description of what they are before. If you just draw out the shape, it'll cast the spell. So if I were to pull the spell out of here, go down to freeform spell, you can just put it in there. And then when I draw these shapes, it casts the spell. Moving on, we have two new shapes. So every spell has three different things. It has a shape, such as being about to axe, and effect, such as catch, however that's pronounced. And then you could also apply modifiers to it. So that would be increasing the magnitude and whatnot. So this is the bolt effect, which this is the same exact thing as the touch effect, except if I were to set it here, as you can see, it is a bit further out. It's a bit like a combination of touch and projectile, except it happens instantaneously at a pretty far range, and you can increase it even further with the distance component. Touch caps at 16. This one caps at 32, which means that you can go pretty far. This is going all the way down to that end area there, and it takes effect immediately. The next thing we have is the wave component, which is really, really bonkers. So here we have a wave, and I'm going to cast this. So I'm just going to create a wave, and it just wham, shoots out a massive wave of whatever your effect is. This can be used to crank pretty much any spell component up to 10. However, the recipe is kind of a bunch of weird stuff, so it'll take a bit of preparation to make it. And now that we're done with our new shapes, we're going to move on to our components. I like to break these components down into two different things, whether or not it's the self component or whether or not it affects somebody else. I typically use the projectile and self things, although some of them actually require the touch, or in this case, bolt components to work, such as if we were to go back to the activate component. The activate component activates things like levers automatically, and it requires the touch component to work. So I will tell you if it does. So the first thing that we have is the drown component. I'm going to be applying this to myself because this is kind of a unique effect. So now that I'm in survival mode, I'm going to right click, and as you can see, I have those like bubbles, and I have the, however that's pronounced. And as you can see, the more that I click, boom, more and more bubbles are being filled up, and if you don't have any left, you drown, and it takes quite a bit of your health. So you're meant to use that on opponents that are, underwater, and you can drown them, and it's kind of scary, like very scary. This probably could do the most damage out of any component if you use it properly. The next component is the haste component, so it gives you speed. That's it. It's not even the haste effect, it's speed. Come on. Invisibility. I mean, it makes you invisible. Strength. It gives you the strength effect, which is pretty good, but why couldn't it just, you can't even increase it to strength 2. Why? Transplace is pretty interesting. So if I were to take this husk here, and if I were to apply a transplace, which this, you have to do to other people. So if I make this a projectile transplace, now I shoot him, boom, we switch places. And now I'm going to transplace again. So he switches with me, And now he's back in the hole. Watery Grave. This is really interesting. So I like to use this as a bubble vader because as you can see, we're right here and boom. You immediately get dragged to the bottom of water if you're affected by Watery Grave. And it just is... It's a magma bubble vader that you don't have to get hurt on at the bottom. Or you also could use it to drag people underwater and then drown them. I love these kinds of combinations. Either way. So now we have Windwall, which I like as well. In order for this to work, I'm going to need a skeleton to demonstrate. So, we have our skeleton friend. Oh, yeah, that. So what Windwall does is it makes it so that when skeletons and whatnot try to attack you, the wind around you knocks it back. So if I were to stand right next to him, he's gonna not be able to hit me with his arrows because they're just being launched everywhere. Ha ha! Take that, skelly boy. Oh, turns out we've got another component here. We've got Wither. It gives you the Wither effect. So that means that the poison component all the way from tier 1, where is it? Where's the poison component? Wait, was poison tier... yeah, poison's tier 2. The poison effect from tier 2 has been replaced by the Wither effect, which is superior in every way. And you can even increase the magnitude, so you can give people like Wither 5. And they just die. And next we have the Animus effect. So if you have heard of the Animus dust, you can, use this on blocks. Oh, yeah, by the way, this is a faction-specific spell. So you can have the Animus dust, and you can sprinkle it on blocks, and they become a animated block for, like, 30 seconds or whatever. And the Animus spell makes it so that you can do that without, using the dust. And I believe that these guys have a timer on them. And they're, I don't know, like, they have longer lasting lifetimes. As you can see, that one faded pretty quickly. That one also faded pretty quickly. But it kind of allows you to turn the environment around you into a defense. Next we have Cauterize, which is for the demon faction. So Cauterize is pretty interesting. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. This is one that you want to apply to yourself, because what it does, if I were to switch into survival mode, it hurts you a little bit, but then it gives you the regen effect, which is very interesting. And if you pay attention, I am currently at 6 hearts. I take half a heart of damage, but then if you look, the amount that I will regenerate in total will be greater than the damage I took. As you can see, the effect is done. I had a net heart of gain. And the other component that we have is the explosion component. So this is one that you don't want to do yourself. This is interesting because this is kind of a dig spell combined with a damage spell. So it you shoot it and it explodes, creates a little bit of fire. But beyond that, it's not like really special compared to the other ones. I mean, it's unique in that it does the effects of 2 spells. Oh yeah, and it can also do that. Yeah, explosion is awesome. You should use this if you're a part of the demon faction. Just make sure that you're not close enough, because as if you couldn't tell, it's really big, and that's not even cranking up the projectile thing. So if I'm just going to yeet it over there. Never mind, it's like the same size. Actually, yeah, never mind. That's quite a bit deeper. That is quite a bit deeper. Yeah. Yeah. The explosion component is super useful. And now I've got to deal with all these fires. Now, there's one thing I will admit while, cleaning this up. Sandstone is a bit of a weaker block, so this effect is a little bit stronger than it would be if it were to be done against something like, say, cobblestone. However, this is pretty comparable to the effect that you'd get if you were to cast this spell, like, in the Nether, which is where the Demon Faction typically is. So, yeah, you could definitely use this spell. Just go crazy with stuff. This is such a beautiful spell. And the thing is, I'm pretty sure it could get increased even further in tier 5. But yeah, and we actually do have another spell from the Demon Faction, because the Demon Faction gets a lot of stuff in this tier. So we have a component you could apply to yourself or to opponents. It's called Nether Gates. And when you do this spell, it... Okay, I was about to say, that if that didn't work, that'd make me quite annoyed. It teleports you into the Nether, which, as you can see, there are quite a few risks, because you may be teleported onto, you know, like a lava pool. But if you're part of the Nether Faction, sorry, the Demon Faction, you're probably going to be immune to the effects of fire anyways by this point. So you'll be perfectly fine. And another thing you could do is that you could make it a projectile and send them their way. This is essentially an instantaneous, I don't want to deal with you right now, goodbye. Although, admittedly, it is kind of laggy. And now we're moving on to the undead spells, because the fake hordes don't have them. The first one is one that you could apply to yourself or other people, is called Fossilize. And this is kind of an interesting spell. I'm going to pull up the book so I could show you guys the math behind it. So, Fossilize, it's as it says, it is a double-edged sword. And it says that all incoming attacks that deal more than 4 damage, which is 2 hearts, will be, well, reduced to that. However, anything less than that will be increased to that amount of damage. And it will apply armor after that. So if you were to, say, be wearing full netherite armor, and then somebody attacks you, dealing half a heart of damage because you're wearing full netherite, it's not increased to 2 if it previously was high. Like, an iron golem hits you, it's reduced to just 2 hearts, then minus the armor, it is reduced even further. And it says that there are potential other ways to apply it, which I'm going to show. However, this is only to be done against things like spiders, because, unfortunately, what we're going to be using is the poison and wither component. So the order that you're going to want to be setting it is Fossilize, and then do that after maybe like a slight delay, so there's a little bit of power here. You could increase the effect to make it attack faster, and you want to do this to somebody else, so I'm going to set it as a bolt. And now I'm going to put down the spider, I'm going to hit them, and as you can see, instead of taking half a heart for every single wither, they just die. Like, immediately. It's completely and utterly bonkers. And you also could do something similar with the poison effect, but I'm pretty sure that that won't be quite as good. I mean, let's see. Yeah, it's just cheaper to do it this way. Wither is definitely the better option, but I assume that Wither is more expensive based on the costs. Hey, we could check in the description table. It's not too far away. The cost for the Wither component, it requires soul sand. Oh, a Wither rose. That's the main thing. So maybe not entirely practical, whereas poison requires, like, random plants. So actually, the Wither rose may be easier to obtain, depending on your circumstances. Either way, we also have one more thing here, the Mist Form component, which I like this a bit. I'm kind of conflicted in how I feel. So Mist Form, it makes it so that you can, if it lasts more than that bit. Oh wait, yeah, you can cancel that early. So you right click, and then it makes you fly around really fast. However, I can't do anything to the outside world, but I double jump to end the effect early. So it's really good for traveling around, but because you're part of the Undead Faction, it's not, like, super useful that you could just go, oh, okay, I'm going to activate Mist Form 24/7. However, it's still a really good spell. You just have to remember not to double jump, because otherwise you're going to have to recast it to continue flying. With all that out of the way, we have the Magnitude spell, which I kind of already showed already with the Wither. As you can see, it could increase the level of the effect. It's just an upgraded version of the Lesser Magnitude effect. I'm pretty sure that's from Tier 3. Yep. where it makes it so that you can apply an increased magnitude or lesser magnitude to anything that involves an effect or that can have increased power, such as summons. And that's it for tier 4. Well, it does look a bit smaller. There's quite a bit of stuff here, but it's mostly when you use them together in the Book of Ro. So I'd recommend using a transcription table and, creating the combined versions of these spells, unless you have multiple books, in which case you could alternate between those books to cast multiple spells back to back. It's just less convenient than actually being able to use it. Either way, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and you learned a bit about the spells. And if there are any corrections, please feel free to tell me in the comment section. I guess that we reached 100 subscribers, which is pretty dang cool. Thanks. And probably going to be posting a video about that. Just like, I don't know, going, yeah. Either way, see you guys later. And I hope you guys continue to watch my videos in the future. See ya.